Every ounce of muscle you gain should be making you stronger. I'm Kaizzad Capadia, and this is the Neulife Masterclass of Muscle. We'll go over this again one more time. He's just bending over to hold the bar. He crushes the bar in his hands using an alternate grip, straightens his spine, and stands up with the bar. Hip back, lower, straight line. You saw the bar coming down in a straight line. This is the way there is no stress on the lumbar. As long as you maintain your lordotic curvature of the lumbar, you maintain a neutral spine, that's not going to happen. Now, take it up again. We're going to risk something out here. Now the hip will not travel back that much. Try and put it down.
Knees will come in the way.
Knees will come in the way. It'll force him to go ahead, and forcing him to go ahead can sometimes round the lumbar. Right? Now, one more thing that can happen is mistiming of the double flexion and the double extension. Flexion is when two bones are coming together close to each other, right? So when the femur and the tibia come close to each other, that's flexion. When they move away from each other, that's extension. When you're standing up, it's extension. When you're sitting down, it's flexion. Now, sitting down or picking up an object from the floor requires first sit down, eccentric requires flexion at the hip, flexion at the knee. Okay? Standing up with the object requires extension at the knee, extension at the hip. And it has to be simultaneous. Do I need to teach somebody to keep it simultaneous? Absolutely not. It's always simultaneous. Okay? And I want to share an experience of mine, something that over a period of time has taught me how to train people. I was holding a workshop for deadlifts for my staff. And there was a trainer who would constantly do this. He would, on the way down on the eccentric, he would push his hip down, hip first, and then unlock the knee. So you see what was happening? Hip, knee, hip, knee. So I'd keep telling him, double flexion, together, hip and knee together, right? And he wouldn't get it. So I was like tearing my hair apart, trying to tell him that these two joints need to move together. But that was at an earlier stage of my teaching. This is how you learn from teaching as well. Because you teach more and more people, and sometimes you see things that give you an insight into how the human body or the CNS actually works. He was so clued into doing the exercise, and his mind was filled with all these notions about hip flexion, knee flexion. You get it? And he was just not getting it right. So this is what exactly happened. Rep number 1, he mistimes it. Rep number 2, I say hip and knee together. Again, he does the same thing. I say hip and knee together. Again, he does the same thing. On the 5th rep, I just say, keep it down. I want him to stop. And you know what he does? Perfectly keeps it down. With hip flexion and knee flexion happening at the same time. So what did I learn from here? When he was doing the lift called as the deadlift, he was in an exercise mode. And in that exercise mode, he overthought. Overthinking the process. Push this, push. You get it? And when I said, keep it down, that was a task. That was a physical task. Keep the object down. Suddenly, there was no more clutter in his brain, and his CNS was allowed to do what it does best. Allows the body to do a task, right? So then when the thought process was, I need to keep the bar down now. End of set, I need to keep the bar down. But he puts down with perfect double flexion. Now this is something I'll mimic a person picking up a suitcase. Okay, so at the airport you're watching somebody pick up a suitcase. This is how you pick up a suitcase, okay? I've held the handle, and this is how I pick up, right? Have you seen many people pick up suitcases like this? You never think of it as double extension happening perfectly timed. He's bending down, he's picking up. Now, see this. Bend down to pick up. Does this look odd?
Yeah.
Would anybody lift a suitcase like this? You'd never see anybody lifting a suitcase like this. You'd never see anybody doing this. It'll always be this to put it down. Pick it up. That's when I started understanding the significance of mental cues and verbal cues.
You go lift, you go down.
Mental cues is what you want that person to think inside. So welding of the bar being part of your body. If I tell the person to lift the bar, he tends to use his lumbar a lot. If I tell the person to weld his hands to the bar, and then his hands can't leave the bar. The bar is part of his hand, part of his body now. And then just say, stand up! And the guy goes, pat, double extension. Of course, he has to be taught other things about lifting. Rigidity, tightness, neutral spine.
Those are in place.
The correct setup. And then once he's in that correct setup point, where the setup is complete, and he's ready to lift off, at that time his mind should just say, stand up with the damn weight, that's it. And his body will follow through. So squatting, sit and get up. Here, weld your hands to the bar and stand up. And that's how you get it right. If you try and put joint actions in people's brains, they'll go wrong.
Overthink it.
They'll overthink it. Okay, this overthinking, I can't tell you how much form and technique principles remain the same through a gamut of physical activities that you can think of. One is, of course, the head remaining straight, your eye gaze locked onto something, not affecting proprioception, not moving back and forth. Many people, I remember training a bodybuilder, they have this habit. They'll take the bar, and when they go down, here, they'll look here, they will look here. This thing can't be happening with the cervical. Cervical has to remain in one stretched position. If it's extended, it stays extended all throughout. This remains the same. You never look at a weight when you're lifting. You never look at the bar while you're lifting. That's another big mistake that people make. When you punch somebody, you don't look at your fist. You look at the opponent and you punch. Correct? Same principle applies.
Trust your proprioception.
Trust your proprioception. We spoke about that when we were talking about the squat walkout. Once we understand how the body works, once we understand how the CNS rules us, then we can use the right commands to get the body to do the right job.
So, just to go over it all again quickly, what would be a few pointers to keep the deadlift safe and easy?
Okay, very few things can go wrong in the deadlift as such, because finally it's not like you're going to be trapped under the bar. The deadlift is probably the easiest lift not to get injured, because finally if something goes wrong, all you got to do is just let go of the bar. In a squat, you really need to know how to maintain yourself when you fail at the bottom. We spoke about that in the squat. In the bench press, suddenly you fail out here, you better have a good spotter behind you. Right? In fact, the deadlift can be done without a spotter. One of the few big lifts that can be done without a spotter. Because finally you're lifting it from the floor and you don't have enough strength for it. You don't finish the lift, let go. Simple. But there are a few things that could go really wrong. Number one, dead movement. No flexion at the elbow joint. Right? And there are so many people who are especially the curlers who curl a lot. Okay? They have this habit of using their arms. Okay? Now nothing's going to happen to the pronated side. The supinated side is going to have a problem. You see, the amount of weight that you can start lifting in a deadlift is way, way more than you can curl.
On a bicep.
On the biceps. So you could obviously have somebody who curls, say, 135 pounds, do deadlifts with 405 pounds. Now, if he doesn't undo this habit of flexing at the elbow, while he's building up to the 405, fine. At one point in time with the 405 also, it will happen. And when that happens, the biceps are just going to rush out.
Tear.
It'll tear off. When they lift, they cannot lift with a full extension. They tend to flex at the elbow as they lift.
Muscle it with their bicep.
Yeah. Okay, in fact, adding biceps is not going to increase the amount of weight that you can lift. It's going to be a limiting factor for the amount of weight that you can lift. And obviously beyond a certain point, forget the pain. How much can the biceps lift? So you're finally going to end up lifting with your torso muscles. Whatever little flexion that you've achieved, you're either lucky enough for nothing to happen or the biceps might rush out. So both your elbows should be at full extension. Okay? There is play. You see this play?
Slight
what
movement in the bar.
Slight movement in the bar. Now your chain should be completely taut. Get it? So before lifting, there are many people who lift like this. Now when I hear this sound, it means that there is looseness at the bottom. Okay, you see this? The bar is not moving, but you can hear the sound. There is a little bit of play between the whole of the plate, Olympic plate, and the bar sleeve. That play needs to be removed off. because that is a jerking force on the body that's going to cause a injury or has the potential of causing an injury. It's like a whip, okay? Now when you lift, you need to be really taut before lift off. Remove that play off and then lift. Not only is it safer, now remember one thing, whatever I say is safer is also more effective. And the primary motive is to make it more effective. Safe is a byproduct, okay? The most efficient way of lifting is always the safest way of lifting also. So whatever we teach first, we teach from the point of view of better performance. Now when you do a whip, and when there is play, you wasted a lot of force eliminating that whip. Okay? Ever tried lifting a car?
Yeah.
Okay, so the car basically, when you lift, you have to make allowance for the suspension, right? Now if you try and do this, the car is just not going to be lifted off. The tire will stay on the ground. So what you need to do is first nicely lift the car up and get the suspension to its limit. Then from there, give it a heave. And that's when you'll see that the tire comes off. If you don't do that and you try and heave it from the bottom, it's not going to happen.
You just go up and then fire back down.
Fire back again because the suspension is going to work against you.
Push it
So
back
nicely extend the suspension up and then lift off. What are you doing? You're tightening up the chain.
Yeah.
And then lifting off.
Same works here.
Same works here. So as he straightens the spine, that spinal correction happens. The play also is eliminated. So lift. See, there's no sound. Go back down. Lift with sound. See that? That tells me that the chain is not taut at the bottom.
The jerk required takes up your energy, and then you're using the rest of your energy to go all the way up.
Now everybody knows jerk means injury potential. All that may not happen also. The point I'm trying to make is every time you do this, there is going to be loss of efficiency. Every time you do this, you may not get injured. That is why I don't like using injury or the potential for injury as a reason for not doing it. I always first talk about efficiency. There are many people training with horrible form and technique and not getting injured for years. So then that becomes very difficult to disprove. But one thing that will always happen is if you use anything but the correct technique, there will be loss of efficiency, there will be a drop in performance. You get it?
Yep.
Okay.
Another thing is about the usage of wrist straps.
Right.
Should you or should you not use wrist straps?
Okay. I use wrist straps myself, but not for the deadlift. Okay. And wrist straps are actually an integral part of a strength training kit, a weight trainer's kit. And I'll tell you where their significance lies. It lies in pulling movements. And this is also a pull, finally. But here, you've got the dead grip. Plus, you've got a deload. That means that you've got a fresh grip behind every rep. Okay, whereas what happens with a bento row? Up and down, up and down, up and down.
You never get to lose.
Right, so there is a lot of movement of the weight without stopping. And that movement is going to cause the grip to give way. In fact, a bento row done explosively, the dumbbells will come and hit the torso with a nice impact. That also shakes the dumbbell off. So repetitive movement up and down in a pull will require straps. You don't want a grip to give way and make that inefficient. Many people talk about lifting straps, reducing grip strength. Well, if you use it the way I do, it will not. I used straps for years on deadlifts. And when I decided to do the deadlifts without straps, I could manage the same poundage. People talk about grip strength corresponding to forearm development. Well, my forearm development has come from nothing else but lifting heavy, and I've always lifted straps and I was pulling. But the one thing that never changed was I would crush the bar, and I would grip the bar with the intent of crushing. So it didn't matter whether the strap was there or not. I held the bar as tightly as I would without straps because I required that welding. If you do that, grip strength is not going to be affected. Forearm development is not going to be affected. And at the same time, those exercises will also be productive. So straps would be used for that. Like a chin-up. In a chin-up, you don't require snaps. Why? Because what you're holding is remaining static. The body is moving up and down. Whereas when the weight moves down and up, that's when you actually require a strap. But here, two factors which eliminate the need for straps. And obviously, if there is no need, don't use an ancillary piece of equipment for no reason at all, right? Are you always going to have straps in your pockets while lifting a heavy object in day-to-day life? No. Probably the heavy object that you're lifting is not a bar around which you can put a strap. So here you've got two things that keeps the grip in place. What are those two things? The dead grip and the deload that allows you a fresh grip behind every rep. And hence a strap is not necessary. If it's not necessary, don't use it. Now, there might be reasons why, for instance, let's assume that you've got injuries that don't allow supination very well. And you just can't supinate and you're uncomfortable on both sides, supinating. Maybe you've got a torn biceps, okay, on both sides. If that's the case, then you'll have to use a prone. And if you use a prone for a deadlift, you'll have to use the straps.
Right. And that's another thing. If you're not using the dead grip, so should you use a supine grip or a prone grip on a dead grip?
Both ways, it's a one-way grip.
Both ways are the same thing.
It's a one-way grip, so it'll give way both ways. But
Okay.
obviously, if you're going to be using a one-way grip in one direction, the most comfortable is going to be prone.
Pronate, because that's the natural position of
Oh,
your hand.
absolutely. And for you to be able to perform at your best, at your maximum, one thing that is extremely important is comfort. Don't unnecessarily make the body, twist your body and contort your body while lifting. See that the body is completely fully aligned in neutral when you lift.
So that's it. That is all about the deadlift. See you next time in the third episode of Masterclass of Muscle.